Hey Rachel, hey Patrick, how are you both doing today?
Really
I'm
good.
doing
How are
well.
you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you for asking.
Good.
And thank you both for being here. I think you know, you two both being sort of new. Patrick, you're the new baby. And
I'm the new guy.
and Rachel, I think you've been with us for about 6 months and
Yeah.
ish. So I think you neither of you really saw at the beginning how much flack we were taking for being a, mainly female-oriented organization. And the reason we sort of wanted to let people know that was to let people know that the way things had been done but in the past by, other people, and this isn't even, an indictment to somebody like Hank, who did a great job, Richard Lee, who made some
Mhm.
great discoveries, but the way that the men had sort of done this before, of course, there's Tom Grant. We were going to do it a completely different way and maybe bring some of that feminine energy we thought might be a little bit, might be helpful, kind of a cool spin on things because we knew Kurt was a feminist, or so, we'd been told. Of course, we've all probably read a lot of quotes about Kurt and how much he loved women
Yeah.
and I think felt about that sort of the more empathic or emotional side that generally women, I mean, we know men are also highly sensitive, but you know, they're not really allowed to show that in our culture. Even now, it feels like it's
Yeah.
still a little bit. So I would
Unfortunately.
exactly. So I wanted to
We
start by
hide away.
reading. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to start by reading a quick quote. And I don't know if you both have any quotes or anything you wanted to add. I know Patrick's going to tell us some stories, which is going to be amazing. So I'll go
Yeah.
ahead and read my quote. And then Rachel, if you want to say anything about Kurt and feminism and if that's part of what drew you to Kurt in the first place, and then we'll move on to you, Patrick.
Perfect.
Perfect. Um, so you know how I like the comfort in being sad. This is, always reminds me of that song. So in Kurt's journal, he said, I like the comfort in knowing that women are generally superior and naturally less violent than men. I like the comfort in knowing that women are the future, the only future in rock and roll, which I think is amazing. And then we can go back and talk about all the female-fronted bands that Kurt probably would have enjoyed.
Mm.
But that's one of my favorites. What about you, Rach?
So one of my favorites that I pulled up specifically for tonight was I am definitely a feminist. I'm fucking disgusted by the way women are still treated. It's 1993 and some people still think we're in the 1950s. We need to make more progress. There needs to be more female musicians, more female artists, more female writers. Everything is dominated by fucking males and I'm sick of it. And I think that just kind of encapsulates uh, everything, really.
How do you think he'd feel right now
Oh, I
after
think
Roe
he'd be
versus
enraged.
Wade? And
Yeah. I think he'd be enraged because one of my thoughts, like when I read it, was, okay, so yeah, 1993, but it's still exactly the same, if not worse. I think it's worse
yeah,
now in
for sure.
2025.
Yeah.
Um, and I think he would still be actively fighting with us to try and get all of this overturned. And that just makes me love him all the more. Um, because yeah, things are just progressively getting worse. And we have always needed allies, like male allies like him.
Yes.
Um, and I think we need them now more than ever, but especially in the 90s as well, we needed them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What about you, Patrick? I mean, knowing Kurt as you did, so you knew him for about 6 years, six, seven
Yeah,
years?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, 6 years, I'd say, probably.
was that ever anything? I mean, I don't think you ever asked Kurt, "Hey, Kurt, what do you think about women, or are you a feminist?" But you obviously got the sense from Kurt that was something he stood for.
Yeah, no, but we did actually talk about it
Oh,
a few times.
Oh,
Uh, for one time, after your favorite album, The Incesticide, came out, we talked about it briefly in my apartment, just briefly. Um, And sorry, I hadn't really thought of this before this conversation, so I'm just sort of something you said triggered that memory. And it was really brief, but I was like, this is really cool. And it was what you said about women being superior, like the quote from his journal. So we had that very discussion. It was like, we both honestly feel that, like, in general, especially back then. in general, women are vastly superior to men. I mean, mentally, emotionally, they're more developed. I mean, come on, I can just really go off on this. And this is genuinely how I felt, how he felt, and so it was kind of a yeah, yeah, kind of conversation. It was like because we both agreed. So unfortunately, we didn't go into it deeper that time. I'll tell a story about a different story in a minute, though. But yeah, we did actually talk about that. And I was going to read the incesticide lyrics or the liner notes, but my copy of the CD seems to be not where I thought it was.
Oh,
And since we're on the thing on the Zoom, I can't really look up on my anyway, I can't look it up to read the quotes, so maybe one of you guys could read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely like I talked to him about that because I was like, "Hey, this is really cool that you said this." And he's like, "Well, yeah, because I feel this way about women." And I'm like, "Yeah, me too." And we talked actually we talked about Janine, who was my birth mother, who was kind of just a force of nature, force like she was very empowering to younger women as well because she was like when they realized how old she was, they're like, God damn, you're doing awesome. She's like, yeah, damn right. And she did not take shit from any fucking person. So, like seriously, some big guys giving her crap, she just would have no compunction, like you could just sense that she's just like assessing, like, okay, I'm gonna knee you right here and punch you right there. And yeah, so definitely that she was a bit of a powerhouse, and we both kind of like that. But yeah, we'll talk about a different story that gets us further there.
Patrick, Janine was your birth mom, right?
Yes, she was my birth mom.
Just
Yeah.
in case somebody has missed one of your other podcasts, I just wanted
Mm.
to let them know.
Yeah.
How did Janine feel about Kurt? Because she met
Oh,
him a
she
few times, didn't she?
Oh yeah, all the time, many times, and she drove us to before I moved to downtown Seattle. She lived in a house in it's called Inner Bay. It's just sort of anyway, it's in Seattle, and she would drive us to and from wherever downtown or wherever.
Aw.
But before that, even into the late '80s, she lived in a house in a place called Woodinville, which is about
Oh.
25 minutes outside of Seattle. And so she would literally come and pick us up and then take us out to Woodinville, hang out at the place at her house, and then truck us back to wherever the U District or Capitol Hill or wherever. Yeah.
Did she
And
like
we did that.
Nirvana's music?
Yeah, yeah, she did actually. I was surprised because I thought it was a bit much for her, especially because especially we're talking like Bleach and some of the he had given me cassettes of stuff, some of the same stuff that ended up on Incesticide, like Arrow Zeppelin and stuff. And yeah, I didn't think she'd like it, but she would like turn it up, and it's like okay, I don't know if you're trying to like you know get in with me on this, but yeah, you're yeah.
That's
and and
awesome.
and certain songs like Dive
Mm.
and yeah, she tended to really kind of also get into sort of the more poppy stuff. So
She sounds awesome.
She really
oh yeah,
does.
she
Now, you told me a quick story, and it's just not about feminism, but it's really cute. So, was it your mom who brushed Kurt's hair out of his eyes at some point?
yes, yes, oh
Hmm.
yeah. Okay, so this is before Nevermind. This is in definitely like a pre Big Fame type of time. Um, So he was hanging out at my apartment downtown, and my sister came over. And my sister came over to pick me up to go to my parents' condo on Alki for dinner. And Kurt was there, and he didn't have any plans, didn't have any pressing thing. And I'm like, "You want to come over to my parents?" And he's like, "Sure, yeah." And so it was just bizarre, and the most like for the Nirvana fans is like seriously the most wholesome, situation you can possibly imagine. Kurt was so, so sweet and so kind to my mom. And my mom is so little and like tinier than him, and she was just so sweet to him. And she, to be honest, didn't really like a lot of my friends, and she really liked him, and he was just so kind and polite. My sister liked him, and my dad made jokes and stuff, and he laughed, and it was very, you know, like I said, absurdly wholesome time just hanging out. He didn't seem to have any stomach issues or anything like that that day. I had witnessed a different time where he had a problem, but in my apartment, but not that day. And yeah, and he even helped. Like at the end, I tend to clear and help my mom, and he just got right up and helped us and started doing dishes and stuff like that. And so yes, Kurt Cobain doing dishes. Picture it, people.
I love it.
Uh, and uh, and at the end, as we're going, his hair's, like this, and it's down to about here. And my mom said, "Well, I'm gonna say the same thing I say to Patrick," as she tucked his hair back over his ear, and she's like, "You should get your hair cut because it's hiding your handsome face."
Oh,
Aww.
And that's literally what she said. And she just was like, and then like touched him on his shoulder and stuff like, and yeah, it was very sweet, very nice. And then, my sister and we drove back to my place, and yeah, he loved them. They were nice. It was a very yeah, that was a great memory. But yeah, yeah, my mom was very sweet and really liked him. And later she said, "You should have more friends like him." It's
perfect.
like,
Yes.
yeah, mom, yeah, I'll
Get right on that.
Yeah.
yeah, get right on that. I'll call the other voices of generation and see what they think.
It makes me wish that you had lived closer to him growing up. He, I think, would
Yeah,
have loved to have a friend like you growing up and somewhere to, I feel like your parents would have not adopted him, but had him
yeah,
for
Taking him
dinner.
in.
yeah.
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah, which would have been
And we
lovely.
we did have like I have like my cousins and aunt and uncle that lived down in Tumwater and Olympia, and we had our cabins. So we were kind of in the area. My dad was from Raymond, which is
Mm.
near Aberdeen. So when I've been to Aberdeen many times, just with my dad, just we're tooling around the whole Western Washington, just driving around doing our thing. But yeah, yeah, I kind of wish we had met earlier. But so it is, and that was a really awesome. That's one of my favorite memories. Just especially my mom tucking his hair back over his ear and telling him to get his hair cut. And then I think he did get that sort of like beetly haircut. Oh, well, it was a
Like
while
kind
after
of
that. I guess
short
that was,
bob.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that was about a year later. But yeah, that was. I think I may have even been like, "Mom, Kurt got his hair cut," or something like that.
I love that so much.
That's
And
so
she
great.
had no idea. I mean, my mom barely even knew who the Beatles were. So, like, she was born in the 1920s. Her uh, absolute different generation, no concept. Like, I'm sure she would have been horrified if she heard his music. Like, that's his music? Like, yeah, yeah, no, just don't worry about it, mom.
Oh, that's so cute. I love it. Speaking of the Beatles, and I don't want to get into a big conversation about John, because I think that he did become more of a feminist once he married Yoko and sort of
Yeah,
understood that women could not only be equals, you could have a great conversation with them, they could be artistic equals, etc. But, the Beatles had to go to bat to allow African Americans into shows. And I think, Kurt's statement about what's the statement, Rachel? Do you happen to have the one about not coming to the shows if you're
Yes, I do. So it's from the incesticide liner notes.
yeah.
thank you for
Um,
reading.
Absolutely. It says, at this point, I have a request for our fans. If any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of different color, or women, please do us one favor, or do this one favor for us. Leave us the fuck alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records.
I basically could have done that from memory, but I didn't want to misquote it.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yes. I think I also should say that I misquoted I think he says, I love the comfort of, and I said that reminded me of a song, and it's I miss the comfort in being sad. So please note that I know that I made a wrong song quote there. Okay. So no, that's, that's a great quote. And it's again something I feel like, a lot of labels would not allow an artist, or an artist wouldn't fight to put that in a liner note,
Yeah,
that
no.
was, especially of the time, that was, I think, a fairly big thing. I mean, let's just say racists they buy records too, right? So,
Hmm.
you're excluding quite a lot of people. And so, I think that was a pretty amazing thing to do and I think we've all probably read stuff where, someone in the LGBTQ plus community met Kurt and just said what that meant to them. Of course, as women, what that means to us, etc. But so I think that was another, I think just a great statement showing that he was willing to fight for those who needed to be fought for.
Yeah,
There was a
no,
sh- there was I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a show in Olympia. And I'm pretty sure Kurt went to the show. I did not go to the show with him, but I think I saw him there and we talked. But basically this show was like Riot Girl, Bikini Kill, that kind of I
Mhm.
think it was all female bands and may have been for a benefit for rape victims or something like that. And men had to pay $5 extra or something like that.
Got
And
it.
so I went and I felt like I got it. Like I didn't have a problem, but I literally saw guys in the line who had no clue apparently, and they come up and they're like, yeah, whatever, $3 for you, $8 for you. And then and the guys would just react. It's like, come on, man, just come on, get up to speed
Yeah,
here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
and so anyway, that was a cool event. I can't remember exactly what the show was, but yeah, it was like you paid more, and it not only seemed like, oh, that's okay. It's like, yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't they do that
yeah,
more?
Yeah.
Not to be
absolutely.
anti-men, but
Yeah.
come
Well,
on,
no,
man.
yeah,
Women can be not only equal. This pissed me off. Let me speak to the men for a minute. You know that women can be superior to you, not just your equal. So sit the fuck down. Anyway, sorry. Just had to say that.
well,
I think the
I
comments
love
are
it.
going to be very interesting. I love it as
I,
well.
Oh,
yeah,
bring
And
no,
it.
for sure.
Bring it.
I think it's that does sound like something that Kathleen would, from Bikini Kill would absolutely be a part of. But I
Oh,
think,
yeah,
that is something that even then it was women getting, extra treatment. I know Kathleen, I believe, would have women come up to the front and men standing at the back, so that women could actually feel safe in their own space and
Yeah.
enjoy going out to music. Because I mean, Rachel, I don't know how much you've gone out to music too, and I know you're on the taller side, but as a woman, you're just like,
yeah,
when you're in a mosh pit or something, you're like, I'm gonna get my fucking head beat in here,
yeah,
like
yeah, no,
that's
for sure. It's
always been
scary.
my experience. Totally. So
Or
I
assaulted, or yeah, it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And speaking of which, there's a clip on YouTube of Kurt at a show. I think Rachel, you had mentioned something about that.
yeah. There's it's one of my favorite clips. Actually, it's very short, but they're literally mid concert. He's in the middle of a song, and he notices just down in the front that something's happening, and he stops mid song and like jumps to go defend this girl who's actively being sexually assaulted in the crowd, and then calls the guy out and has him removed.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like that's if every guy did that when they saw something,
Yeah.
numbers of actual assaults would just
Yeah.
plummet. Um,
Like we don't get to be in locker rooms. So somebody like
mm,
Patrick or Kurt or somebody, you're there, especially, Patrick, you're a bigger guy, and it's like, yeah, talking shit about women, or making jokes about rape where the victim is the butt of that joke. Haha, like that's not funny, So it's
right.
not just us being nags and being like killjoys and ruining the party because we don't think that's funny. But when men are there who, I mean, because we literally can't do it. So
Yeah.
I've gotten in very aggressive discussions over similar things and exactly what you're talking about, like a
yeah.
men's bathroom. Some guy just saying some stupid fucking thing, And it's like, I just can't keep my mouth shut. I don't care. I'm going to say something. And and usually that shocks them enough that they're like, whoa, what the fuck? And then they're like, for some reason, a lot of males think that a male standing up for a female is a weak male. Uh, by the way, you're standing up to aggressive males. No, I'm sorry. You kind of have to be a little bit, have some fortitude to you, because you're probably going to get in a tussle or two. And I have. And
At the
and
very least,
no,
threatened.
yeah, and no, it's like no, it's there have been moments where I've had to kind of put it to someone that they need to rethink their life choices. So, um,
I mean,
you
that's
know,
amazing. And
That's
and
very much
I think
appreciated.
that's all that women are asking for. We're not
Yeah.
saying go march in a parade every day, give up half your wages so that we can get paid, so that we can have parity. We're literally saying, maybe just stand up for us once in a while. And
Yeah.
and
yeah,
so
and
thank you.
behind closed doors when you're not
Yeah,
seeing it, you don't know.
exactly.
But I'm not gonna fucking stand there and listen to that shit. No, no, no.
Yeah.
And Kurt wouldn't either. And yeah, I don't know. But yeah, he definitely wouldn't have stood it. And he was little too, so
Yeah.
he would really risk getting hurt by some of these meatheads. And but sometimes it's just simply the little Wolverine in you, like looking at him dead in the eye, like, are you fucking kidding? Like, I looking at them like, I will rip your soul out, even though I'm a sweet little marshmallow teddy bear inside. You don't know that.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I'm kind of coming at you like that, it's like, you know, you don't necessarily know that part about me. So in that moment,
Hmm.
and again, a lot of people with limited thinking on that subject might think, oh, you're sweet little marshmallow. You must be weak and sensitive. It's like, no, actually, it takes a lot of strength to retain that. So anyway, I'm not
Absolutely.
trying to grandstand or anything. I'm just
Well, no, it
speaking.
takes a lot of strength to be vulnerable, and that's a
Does.
huge misconception that most people have, is that
Mhm.
if you cry, you're weak and you're a baby and you're whatever. No, the amount of strength it takes to recognize your feelings and express them and get them out, that takes a lot of strength,
Yeah,
especially for men who get criticized more for doing it.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think like I'm probably one of the world's most sensitive human beings, and I
Me
cry.
too.
I used to cry every day, and I think that's what brought us all together. I used to cry every day for about the first year of doing this. Now I probably only cry once a week. Depends.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's the thing. We might cry and we might do whatever, but we get back up and we keep fighting
Hmm.
another day, right? So
Yep.
I think
Always.
that's people might not understand our fortitude, when it comes for fighting for what we believe in, I think.
Yeah.
So Patrick, tell me a little bit more about you were going to tell us a story about some
Yeah.
fans.
It
Wonderful.
is a perfect segue too, because yeah. So there was one day where we were hanging out in my apartment, listening to music, and then we were going to go up to Capitol Hill. There's a bar called Linda's, and we didn't drink much, but that's where I don't know. He was going to meet someone, or that's just the destination where we were both going. Um, so we walked down to downtown and then up Olive, and so we're heading up towards Capitol Hill, and so we're going just kind of up the street by ourselves. Uh, and this is obviously after Nevermind had hit because he was clearly famous by these girls' reactions. These girls were coming towards us the opposite direction, two girls, and they were very excited. And one of them produced out of her bag something, a marker of some sort. Wasn't a Sharpie, but like an old version of a Sharpie, like a blunt one. And they wanted Kurt to sign. They're like, "Hey, if you sign your give like your signature, I want to have it tattooed." And so he was asking like what they wanted to say, and the one girl did this whole thing on her arm. The other girl, the other girl lifted her shirt and wanted. We're right there on the street. Cars are going by. People are walking by. Even lifted her shirt and wants him to write like something like property of Kurt Cobain on her chest across her breasts.
Mm.
And he's like, he goes, you know, you're really incredibly beautiful, and I don't, I, he's like, I want to say this exactly like how he said it. He's like, you're incredibly beautiful, and I think that you will have a long life of people appreciating you, and I don't think any one person should have ownership of you. So I would much rather, how about the back of your shoulder or something on your back or something, and I'll write my name and something else. Uh, but I think that you should. He was kind of pleading with her, like, I feel that you should maybe, without saying it this way, this isn't what he said, but kind of have more self-respect. Like, you know, like maybe if you, like, no man should have ownership of that. They can borrow it and they can rent it and they can enjoy it, but they cannot own it. And she cried right there and put her shirt, like, turned around actually, kept it like she covered her breasts, but then turned around so that he could do it on her, like her right shoulder blade.
Shoulder.
And he wrote something like love yourself or something like that. And Kurt, and they said they were going to go get it tattooed, and like after
Mm.
they left, and they thanked him, and she thanked him. She's like, I just hadn't thought of that
Mm,
before. And he's
lovely.
like, yeah, he's like, he's like, a tattoo like that you might regret later. And he's like, you know, you're at a point in life. I can't remember how he put it, but he's like, we're all at a point in life, and you'll you want to come into yourself and come into respecting yourself. And when you do that, you don't want to have to look at that every day in the mirror. And no,
Mm.
like he said, no one should own that. And, you know,
Were they
so
younger, the
yeah,
girls?
they were
Yeah.
like 18, 19,
Mm.
you
Mm.
know, and so we were 20, I don't know, five-ish, 24, 25. So they're a
Amazing.
couple years younger. And yeah. And well, because I don't know, maybe because her chest was exposed or whatever, few people gathered, and they were like just watching this whole thing. And two people walked up with Stilindas that I think he knew, but I didn't know.
Mm.
Um, and anyway, the story ends easily. That we just it was just sort of over. We kind of went back to talking and went to Linda's, and everyone kind of zoomed in on him, and we said goodbye at one point, you know, just, and that was the end of that time. But yeah, that was the story.
Mm, that's
I
amazing.
I love I think it says so much about his character, um, and his value of people.
Yeah,
Uh,
and trying to get her to value herself in,
well,
like,
right, that's
in that moment.
Mm.
yeah, that's like at least in my experience, more often than not, it's girls saying things like that to other girls, like friends trying to uplift each other.
Mhm.
It's very rare and very wonderful when men are trying to help instill that in especially young girls, but women in general as well. Um,
It's such a non-rock star thing to do.
well, right,
Yeah,
it's, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
uh, it's pretty amazing, honestly, and I wow.
And so do you sort of feel too that that's something, I mean, in his lyrics, Kurt kind of, talked about women. There's Frances Farmer will have her revenge on Seattle, which I love. And I think he kind of tried to, I know a lot of times he would say his lyrics didn't mean anything, but
Mm,
later on it seemed like he was sort of doing that a little bit more and making he knew people were studying and critiquing. So he was sort of, making sure he did that. But I also think you can say your lyrics don't have meaning, but whatever I write is going to be different than what you write. Right. So even
Right.
if I'm like, oh, it meant nothing, it's still my scribblings are going to be totally different than what either of your brain scribbles are going to be. Right.
Well,
So
well, yeah, and I think, what your scribbles are is based off of what you're thinking and you're feeling and you're experiencing. Like that's going to influence what you're going to write, what you're going to come up with. So
absolutely.
even if it was meaningless to him, it came from somewhere. It came from somewhere real, in
Yeah,
a sense, at least.
totally. I
And
agree.
he also definitely grew. People think of him as a static artist.
Hmm.
He's not the same at the beginning and the end.
No.
He grew, and the first songs were like bits of poetry and lyrics decided at the last minute and that kind of thing, or so he said. Um, Sometimes I believe that, sometimes I'm a little skeptical. Because he said, I also know some lyrics were existing for quite a while. But
Yeah.
then near the end, he definitely was much more direct. Like he would say about uh, Rape Me as an example,
Mhm.
where he needed to be more direct because people were misinterpreting songs like Polly. And then the horrific thing of that pissed him off about people raping a girl while singing the lyrics to Polly,
Mm.
which literally just drove him insane. Like he hated that. And that's the exact opposite. So he thought, I have to be super direct and super or impersonal and write about songs that are stories from books and stories from Francis Farmer and other story songs that are a little outside of himself, but still he's filtering it through himself. So, I mean,
Right. Well, and another one that I love personally, and I feel like this is probably at least semi-common knowledge, but I don't know, maybe not. But that's penny royalty itself is used to induce an abortion. And so I feel like that's a very specific choice to write
yeah,
a song about
Hmm.
penny royalty. Like, um,
Did you hear that one, Patrick, at all? Because Courtney says she wrote that. So I'd love
I,
to know if Rachel, your
I only,
face.
sorry, I can't control
only
my face.
Yeah.
we only talked about we did not talk about Courtney having any involvement, but we only talked about the double entendre of penny royalty and penny royalty, like
Mm,
like you know um sort of an insult to royalty, like
Mhm.
yeah.
the cheap a cheap and it,
Knockoff.
yes, exactly, yeah, you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's really all we mentioned, and I can't even think of the context of why we talked about that. We were talking about something else. And I think we were just talking about double meanings, and he made
Mm,
a reference to that. So we weren't really talking about his song, um, or things that you say them a different slight, like the same words but said in a different way is a
mm,
different word and a different meaning. That kind of
right.
thing. So,
Mhm.
um,
I
but
believe
yeah,
Grohl said that at some point that he said, well, I was around when Kurt wrote that, and I can assure you Kurt wrote it. Or there was something,
yeah.
I believe, where yeah, somebody,
All,
Well,
all I ever heard from him was that he and Courtney and the members of Hole would jam together, and he liked jamming with them, and
mm,
different. That's different than sitting and writing a song and pulling the lyrics out and like, oh, it's yeah. And he all he ever said was that he liked the basically the chemistry of that group, which just personally is a
weird.
like an abhorrent thing to my personal being, but
Yeah.
I can't really imagine why they would all personally jive better musically. But
grass is
what?
greener.
Yeah, the grass is greener. That
Well,
was
and
his. That was
he
him,
really
and not
liked
me.
Patty and he liked Kristen.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
So
Kristen
True.
was amazing.
maybe
And
that's
Patty was awesome. So
yeah.
yeah, again, there's this female energy, and he locked in with them and Courtney. Of course, he and Courtney, he felt he felt very like they were in sync and
Mm,
whatever. But that's what he felt. And so when they're playing, you've got Patty, you've got Kristen, you've got Courtney.
Mhm.
Other than Eric, you've got a pretty female band, and that
Yeah.
I think he locked into that. And yeah, so he
Well, I
just told
mean,
me he really liked the chemistry of the group.
yeah. Well, and I mean, he had said at least once or twice that he felt like he had kind of like a feminine energy to himself, and that
Hmm.
he thought that he maybe even could have possibly been bi, like if it wasn't for Courtney, I think is the full quote. Um, but I think regardless of Courtney, if he's feeling that way, that says something. Um, and I always kind of love that about him too. But
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We
Song
both
lyrics.
respected strong females in our lives. So
mm.
anyway, sorry, song lyrics.
Song lyrics. What's I gonna say? There's another really good one, isn't there, Rachel? I feel like there's another one that
My personal favorite one is from Territorial Pissings. It's Never Met a Wise Man, if so it's a woman.
that's a great
That's my
one.
personal favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's great.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
Patrick, did you ever meet Wendy, Kurt's mom?
No, I did not, unfortunately. I met Kim once, but not Wendy.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, Kurt didn't really spend a lot of time with Wendy himself, did he?
No,
I didn't think.
no, I don't believe so. Not after he left Aberdeen, I don't believe. No.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this was so much fun. Thank you guys
Absolutely.
both so much for being here and sharing everything and that story, Patrick. I really hope if you saw that, or if that was you getting a tattoo, or you were in kind of the group that saw that happen, please comment below and let us know. And if you did get a tattoo and you were the one who got the tattoo, we would love to see it. So
Hmm.
thank you so much, both of you. And let's do this again in a week or two, where we'll
Yes,
chat about
please.
something else.
Sounds great. Thanks so much,
Okay.
Michelle.
Bye,
Thank you.
guys. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.